So the title, as you can see, is Ethics and Regulation of Artificial Intelligence in Health and Care Platform, which is, quite general title as far as the work of Gatekeeper is concerned. And this is also part of the work which I do as a senior researcher within the UDG Alliance, which is a partner of the Gatekeeper project. UDG Alliance is itself really a platform of research institutions based in Geneva, working on different aspects of compliance, privacy, artificial intelligence, and standardization also in this field. Now, the issue which I will touch upon are, of course, Gatekeeper, which is the context in which we operate, health and data, ethics, and regulation. This is really the focus of the reflections which I will be sharing with the participants today. I have asked the organizer to share the slides to all the participants who are potentially interested. One thing that you will see in the slides is that all the sources which I will quote will have an hyperlink to the image of the slide. So when you receive the slides and want to have access to the source, you can just click on the image, as I will do maybe later, and then you can have access immediately to the primary source I have been using for the presentation. So on which basis the European Union has built the relationship between e-health and data? These are part also of the 2018 European Union communication on this. So secure data access and data sharing, connecting and sharing data for research, faster diagnosis and improved health, strengthening citizen empowerment and individual care to digital services, which is really the core of a very grounded approach on health. You need to have the data need to be secure, and secure means not only to be in compliance with all the applicable law, but also secure, I would say, from an ethical perspective, because as also recent reports have highlighted, the more is the trust on the handling of data by end user, the more is the security of the data and the organization handling those data. We have seen over the past few months how many hospitals have been the target of, for instance, cyber attacks. I invite you to have a look at what has happened a couple of weeks ago. I think it was in Finland, where a psychiatric clinic was the object of a cyber attack. Many of the health record of patients were stolen, and all the diagnosis of these patients were basically blackmailed because the hackers managed them to basically disseminate their psychiatric reports. So you can see how much can be the impact on a life, on a person, of something like this happening, and also on the reputation of an organization if something like this happens, not counting the possibility of fines and so on. I mean, you can go bankrupt not only because you get fined by data protection authorities, but you can go bankrupt and you can basically shut down your business, even if the trust that customers and end users have in your organization basically collapses because of an act like this one. So the first thing, very recent report, if some of you is interested in e-health and data, is a recent report of the Ada Lovelace Institute. The data will see you now, datification and the boundaries of health. Basically, one of the important findings, of course, of this report is this reproposition of this concept of Internet of Health, which is connected to datification of health. And the Internet of Health, as the authors of the report define it, is an internet in which everyone is made perform as a patient, subject to continuous monitoring, diagnosis, and prediction. In the slides, you will have access to the report produced by the Ada Lovelace Institute. So it's about a 35 pages report. I think it's a good updated introduction to the field of datification, as the subtitle says, the datification and the boundaries of health. Now, there are two other important reports which came out in November 2020. I have already shared this report in the context of the Gatekeeper Legal Policy and Gender Board. So those of you that participated to those meetings already know about what I'm talking about. Is the BDVA, Big Data Value Association. Quite a few partners of Gatekeeper are also member of the BDVA, but one of the subcommittee of the BDVA for the first time has produced a report on AI in healthcare. So Basically, what the report does is the report identifies technical and non-technical challenges in the field. You will be surprised by reading the report the amount of attention that the author of the report also devote to what we will call ethical issue in general for the full deployment and real and good deployment of AI solution in the field of healthcare. So the report is this one, and again, as I mentioned before, you can just click when I will share the slides, and if you want to have access to it, the task force is task force 7 of the BDVA subgroup of healthcare. This is the first important report that they publish in the field. In fact, Giuseppe Fico, I don't know if he's attending the webinar today. I had an exchange with him on this report, and he said that he will also use the report for teaching his classes, because it's the first of such a report tackling this field so directly. But the very same day that the BDVA released this report, they also released another report on a topic that we already know within Gatekeeper is a topic of particular attention, where there are things which are still not very clear, and it's clarification. And there have been several requests also from organizations to the European Commission to provide clarification on the field of data sharing. And in fact, the second report is titled "Toward European Governed Data Sharing Space, Enabling Data Exchange and Unlocking AI Potential." Now, we know that the issue of data sharing in the field of health is particularly sensitive in a sense, because there is still a lot of things which are not clear there. So the momentum is growing to create clarity there, and we will see that also recent proposals by the Commission are working exactly on that field. Now, connected to this data sharing and data is the so-called European data strategy, which was released in February this year, just a few days before lockdowns were down in many countries. I remember being in the European Parliament with quite a few people from working on the IoT unit in the Commission when the data strategy was released. And it's really, if you have not had the opportunity to read the data strategy, do it. And one of the goals of data strategy is the creation of a European data space, including for the e-health sector between 2019 and 2025. And this common European data space will promote better exchange and access of different types of health data, not only to support healthcare delivery. This is what is called the primary use of data. It's basically what our pilots are doing, collecting the data from the patients, but also for health research and health policy policy making purposes, which is the issue of the secondary use of data. The pillars of the European health data space are a strong system of data governance and rules for exchange, data quality, and strong infrastructure and interoperability. Quite a few partners of the Gatekeeper project are also working on the very delicate topic of interoperability. Just think about the perennial issue of e-health records among the different European countries. Now, the important thing to stress in the context of the issue of the European health data space, which again I want to stress, is the more we build the kind of internal ecosystem of Gatekeeper, the more it will be important to identify which kind of connections we are going to build between the old Gatekeeper ecosystem and the other ecosystem of the European health data space. So in this preliminary opinion published, you see it is November 17, 2020. So you already see in basically less than 1 month, 3-4 important documents bombarding us. And these are all important documents that we have to take into account. So the European Data Protection Supervisor released an opinion, which is the opinion number 8, 2020, on the European health data space. So your legal department, especially for our partners working on technical solutions, probably want to have a look on this opinion of the European Data Protection Supervisor, which envisages also code of conduct, for instance, for the sharing of health data, and a stronger coordination among the different players in the context of the European health data space, plus envisaging other technical solutions. Now, the thing which I want to stress is that we sometimes use law and ethics as synonymous. I understand that sometimes when people working in IT, people working in informatics or engineers, lawyers are often seen as the troublemakers that prevent them for doing something that they want to do because it's technically possible to do it. And I always say at that moment, when you have to discuss with an engineer telling him, oh, but you probably cannot do that. You cannot just throw the data out and this kind of stuff. But it's important also to stress the difference between what is law and what is ethics, because people tend to confuse the two things. So we have to take into account that the compliance issues is different from the ethical issue. They are two different moments of equal importance, as the Big Data Value Association stresses. But for instance, internally, unless you have people which have received training in both disciplines, you cannot pretend that, for instance, your department that deals with data protection and compliance issues also deals with ethical issues. Now, within Gatekeeper, one of the tools that we aim to develop, and I will focus on it also later, is this combined tool, which will include a data protection impact assessment plus an ethical impact assessment for the e-health sector. But of course, in order to do so, we have to involve different competencies, people with different backgrounds and expertise. So, as you know, in the context of Gatekeeper, we have, in the context of work package 1, been working with the pilots which are involved in Gatekeeper. I have already stressed this in other occasions. When you look at sister projects or brother projects, depends which kind of adjective you want to use. One key document that you always look at is the data management plan of the project. And usually, from what I have also gathered online, these documents are about 50, 20 pages in general, where you have an overview of the data that the project will handle and so on. We have taken a kind of more complex approach here because we have decided to create the state of the art based on the information that we had at the time, a project data management plan, plus we have asked every single pilot within Gatekeeper to create a data management plan. This ended up in a much more substantial document, more than 100 pages, but we were able to do a first picture to the state of the art that we have at that time. Now we are going to ask also the pilot to update the data management plan, because probably they have more ideas on the kind of data that they are handling and also the internal data flows that they will be having. And in this data management plan, of course, you deal with the most important issues concerning data summary, data security. We included some ethical aspect there, the purposes and the basis for data collection, the allocation of responsibility. And in document, we also included some general and specific instruction for guaranteeing compliance in the handling of data. So the production of a data management plan is, for any kind of organization which is involved in data, one of the first things to do, because that allows you to have a kind of again, I want to stress, picture of the data that your organization is in handling. But it is, of course, a continuous work in progress, and in fact we've been also in touch through the pilot cluster, and I want to thank again Silvio for his work with the pilot working on the update of this. And another thing that we have done parallel to that is, of course, the work on the ethical issue. So we have begun to develop a Gatekeeper ethical strategy, identifying in the literature the most important principle that can be applied, and you can see here them at the button to the deployment phase in the pilots. And we have built an initial checklist which is available in our one of our deliverables. Now we are working on that checklist to create the first prototype of ethical impact assessment that we will submit through the pilot, and through dynamic iterations, as you can see here, with the pilots and with the now established policy, legal, and journal board. By the end of the project, we want to be able to have a tool which is going to be, as I mentioned before, a data protection impact assessment plus an ethical impact assessment that can be applied to the vertical. I am quite positive about it. Let me move to this, because I have had also similar experiences with the context of smart cities and a tool similar to that one has been created it has been launched this week by the G20. So can you see the website which is opening now? Hello.
No, try to click
Okay.
again.
Yeah, no, I'm sharing now the desktop, so maybe you can see it. You can see it now.
Yes, we can see it now.
So this is the roadmap launched, of course, for for another vertical, which is the vertical of smart cities, which includes many topics in which, you know, even a vertical like e-health is included, accessibility, open data, and of course the privacy impact assessment issue. Now, if you see what they have done here on the G20 website, you have really all the basic information on the assessment. So it's really a policy model for the vertical with the references which have been added. My aim is to be able to create something like this for Gatekeeper by the end of the project through the several iterations that we will have in the context of the project with the policy board and also with the pilots. And I am quite confident that we can deliver something like this for all the community working in e-health, basically. So I think that this will be a very good tool that can help the whole ecosystem in moving forward towards good deployment and a good privacy and ethical assessment. Why this is so important and why these ethical and legal issues are so important? I want to say that they are important, of course, if you care about values and so on, they are important, but they are important also, I would say, in a wider geopolitical context. If you look at how the data economy is being developed in different countries as in different continents. Now, over the past few months, the Stanford there has been a research project based at Stanford, in which they have been handling dealing with here we go the rise of digital authoritarianism, and especially the handling of data by some countries such as China. And we see that the deployment and the use of data, which is done in some countries, and the culture of privacy protection is very different. We know that as far as the European ecosystem develops, uh, begins to differentiate a lot from other ecosystems. This is why I think it will be particularly important kind of discussion that we will have with the Asian pilots that will join Gatekeeper, because they will definitely enrich our understanding of a vertical like e-health in a global scenario and not only in a European or Western scenario. So besides the technical issue, there are also these value issues which are particularly important. Now, another new development, some of you might be familiar with it, the proposal of the European Commission of the Data Governance Act last week. Of course, this is a proposal that you now find online on the Commission website. And this proposal, which is, you know, it's a new document, legal regulation like the General Data Protection Regulation, which deals basically with the issue of data intermediaries, trust in data sharing, data altruism, and reuse of public data. If you connect this with the development of the e-health data space, you see that the legislative and regulation ecosystem and business ecosystem that Gatekeeper will be dealing with at the end of the project will be a profoundly changed ecosystem as compared to the one when we started the project only 1 year ago, basically. So you see how much in 1 year things have evolved, and we have to adapt to this evolving scenario if you want to end up by the end of the project with an up-to-date solution in market terms and not only in research terms. So we have to monitor all this development. I have written a short comment to the Data Governance Act proposal on the website of CyberSec for Europe, which is a project dealing with cybersecurity in Europe. It's one of the 4 pilot big projects dealing with cybersecurity in Europe. again, in the slides, you can click and you have access to all the primary sources and to the blog post which comments the proposal of the Commission on a new European Data Governance Act. There are news also in the ethical side. Resolution approved by the European Parliament. You see, 20 of October of this year, a little bit more than 1 month ago. Framework for ethical aspects of artificial intelligence, robotics, and related technologies. And again, very important state-of-the-art recognition of what is going on in Europe in this very, very delicate field. So we are again all called to keep an eye on these developments.